A blood moon is coming in just a few days, and this rare astronomical event will be viewable by more than 1 billion people on this planet on August 27th to the 28th, depending on location. So if you're in North America, South America, you have perfect viewing for this partial lunar eclipse, but those who are in Europe, Africa, Hawaii, you may see parts of this lunar eclipse as well. And this is a big lunar eclipse because it's also coinciding with a variety of other energetic phenomena right around the same time. So there's a classic energetic convergence occurring on the 27th to 28th. We have a big sunspot that'll be exactly facing Earth, center, and direct. We have Mercury Cazimi occurring on the 27th, the superior conjunction of Mercury. So in fact, it'll be a Mercury, Sun, Earth, Moon alignment. We'll very likely have the 54th historic eruption of Kilauea volcano on the Big Island of Hawaii on the same day as the full moon. We've been having the recent high magnitude earthquake activity synchronized with the lunar phasing for about the past 6 weeks. So new moons, full moons, we've been having these big earthquakes strike. So there's a lot of uncertainty as to what exactly may occur around this time, Thursday, Friday of next week, again, August 27th to the 28th. But it promises to be exciting nevertheless. And if you're in San Diego specifically, we are doing a partial lunar eclipse watch party. This is free to everybody. You just show up if you want. So there are details in the video description. Also, I'll talk about that more at the end of the video. So with that, let's get right into it. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist. Let's go. Let's begin with the basics of what is a lunar eclipse. And well, you have the moon orbiting around the Earth, and every 28 days or so, you have a complete rotation. But there is a slight inclination to the lunar orbit. It's about 5.15%. So every 6 months or so, you'll get the moon to be in that full moon position behind the Earth, opposite the sun, when it's also not inclined away from the Earth, meaning it'll pass into Earth's shadow because all the planets and objects in space are casting a shadow from the sun. So Earth has a wide shadow called the penumbra, and then there's this deep dark shadow called the umbra. And often these partial lunar eclipses are just penumbral eclipses where it doesn't pass into that cone of the umbra. A total lunar eclipse is when you have the moon completely pass into the umbra. This partial lunar eclipse is passing 95% or so into the umbra. So a sliver of the moon will still be a bit more illuminated than it would have been otherwise. But in general, this is almost a total lunar eclipse, and it will show the moon changing color. We can see why the moon changes color here with this diagram. So what happens is you have the atmosphere of the Earth, and there are different colors that basically get refracted out, and as you move into the umbra, the only colors that are able to make it for the moon to then reflect back to us are the red colors. So this is still sunlight at the end of the day refracting through Earth's atmosphere, but then it goes like this, strikes the moon, and then reflects back to us. But energetically, it's very interesting that we have a full moon when the moon is brightest from our perspective here on Earth. And as we all know, this kind of creates some crazy activity here on the planet. There's a reason the word is called lunatic, right? Ask any ER nurse or whoever about the full moon effect and they will vouch for it. Well, to go from a bright full moon to a blood red moon and back over the span of a few hours is pretty exciting. And we often see tumultuous events in time link up with these blood moons. Just pay attention and you'll see it. It's very, very interesting. So this is occurring. Here we see an animation from NASA giving us our times for this universal time. So we see the moon will pass into the penumbra. This is the outermost shadow, not as dark as the umbra is. But a lot of people, specifically like Europe, Africa, will see some of the penumbral eclipse. But then it'll start to pass into the umbra, okay? And this phase right here lasts quite some time, about 2 hours. 3:15 universal time is equivalent to about 11:15 p.m. for Eastern Daylight Time. 4:13 will be 12:13 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then we see it moves out again. It's about 2 hours to go from 50% partial, 50% partial. That right there will be 2:11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Pacific time is 3 hours, of course, even further off of that. So this overall partial lunar eclipse lasts quite some time for the west coast of the United States, California specifically. As the sun goes down and the full moon then starts to rise, it's already going to be undergoing this partial lunar eclipse. So we're not going to see the entire eclipse across the entire penumbral to umbral stage and back, but we will see the entire partial eclipse, which will be very, very cool. So here is an excellent video showing exactly what this looks like for the different locations on the globe via time and date. And so here we see our moon, okay? And we also see the Earth. So this is the daylight side of the planet. We see the full moon. These locations, we'll see that umbral. Here is the partial. And then we see it go back to the penumbral eclipse. And then it goes back to a regular full moon. So we can watch that again. So there is our full moon. There's our penumbral eclipse. There is our partial umbral eclipse right there. And then it goes back. So viewable by a wide swath of the world, but notably people in Asia, Southeast Asia, Australia, they are not going to see this at all. They will be on the daylight side when the moon makes this astronomical alignment. And remember, it's not only with the sun and the Earth that this alignment is occurring. We also have Mercury in the mix. Let's talk about this Mercury cazimi. We already have signs that this Mercury cazimi is coming because we can look at our coronagraph view of the sun and we see very clearly there Mercury on the far side shining very brightly. So a coronagraph is a special telescope that puts a disk over the sun. This is the occluding disk right there. That's the sun being represented by that white circle, such that it blocks out the majority of the light from the sun, just like what happens with a total solar eclipse where the moon passes in front, allowing us to see the faint details of the outer corona, the outermost plasma atmosphere of the sun. And as a result, we can see solar storms that launch out and filament eruptions and all this crazy stuff. But with these coronagraph views, we can also see planets that are either transiting in front of the sun, like Venus or Mercury, or on the far side of the sun, which would be all the outer planets. And well, Mercury is one of the brightest in the coronagraph when it's performing its superior conjunction. So we get these fairly often. We often notice too an enhancement of space weather and solar activity around these sort of superior conjunctions of Mercury, because Mercury being so close into the sun and having unique geology, it interacts with the solar wind in ways that appear to provoke solar activity. And well, at the same time that we have this Mercury cazimi, which goes exact on the 27th and the 28th of August, we have a fairly significant sunspot that will be exactly Earth-facing direct. Let's check it out. Here we have sunspot group 4513, and it will be exactly Earth center and direct in the strike zone on the 27th to 28th of August. So it takes about 14 days to go from one limb of the sun to the other based on the solar rotation period. Also, Earth is slightly moving around the sun as well during that time frame. And it's already given us 4 significant solar flares. So on the 20th of August, there was an 8.1 M-class solar flare. It blasted off. We've seen other activity as well. That's the second highest category of solar flare. And when you get these big explosions on the sun, sometimes they launch out coronal mass ejections, or effectively these big blobs of plasma, highly energized matter, such that it travels through space, and when they hit Earth, these solar storms, they cause Earth's magnetic field to compress and to oscillate. You get strong electric currents that are generated, and the magnetic field goes a little wild. So things get a little chaotic energetically here on Earth when we get these sort of space weather impacts. And again, as I mentioned, we often see enhanced space weather and solar activity with the superior conjunction of Mercury and with that full moon effect at the same time. And in fact, with this convergence, that partial lunar eclipse energetic effect all at the same time, things could get spicy. And in addition to all that, we have some pretty notable synchronization occurring between the Earth with the moon for whatever reason, but it's occurring right now with earthquake activity and also volcanic activity. So let's learn more about that. Kilauea volcano is located on the big island of Hawaii, and it is one of the largest volcanoes on the planet because it's connected to the Hawaiian hotspot. So just in general, between Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, Kilauea, you have one gigantic volcano. And because its magma plumbing connects so deeply into the Earth, the mantle, the core mantle boundary, it provides a glimpse into some of these deep Earth processes that are occurring all the time. Well, we've had 53 historic eruptions now from Kilauea going back to December of 2024. So that is a record number of lava fountaining episodes in a very short time frame of just about a year and 8 months. It's never happened before that fast or that many. Well, the past 7 eruptions have been synchronized with the moon phases of the new moon and the full moon, almost perfectly. We'll look at that. But here we see our live view of Kilauea right now, today the 23rd, and she's not yet fully inflated. So we're still waiting on this next 54th eruption. And based off of the trend that we've been seeing, it's very likely that she's going to erupt around the same time as this partial lunar eclipse, the full moon, because, well, again, the past 7 eruptions have all been synchronized with that. Here we see our eruption timeline. So we had the 53rd, 52nd, 51st, 50th, right? We can go back to the 47th to see when it got synchronized. And just in general, if you want, you can pause here and look at these dates. I'll also link this in the video description. But we had the new moon on May 16th. Okay, this is episode 47. Look at the date here, 14th to the 15th. This is Hawaiian time too, okay? So that's going to be offset earlier than it would be for just universal time. Now, episode 48 occurred on June 1st, and well, we had the full moon on May 31st. So again, within one day, boom, you have Kilauea erupt. Episode 49, June 14th, that's the same day as the new moon. Episode 50, June 27th, we had the full moon on June 29th. On the 15th of July, we had episode 51, and well, July 14th was the new moon. Episode 52 was on the 28th to 29th of July. The full moon was on the 29th of July, and episode 53 was on the 12th to 13th of August, and well, we had the total solar eclipse, that new moon, on August 12th. So you see how the past 7 eruptions at Kilauea have all been synchronized, most of them within 24 hours of the exact new moon or full moon phase. But in general, new moons and full moons last about 2 to 3 days. So they're all right there in that time window. Now we can look at our latest tilt data for Kilauea here to get a sense of what's happening and if she's likely to erupt during this time frame. So if we look at the past year, we see now how the phasing has grown very, very consistent. We had this 5.2 magnitude earthquake strike off the coast of the big island of Hawaii. This was on the Kama'aheo-Kanaloa seamount. That seems to have changed the system. At the same time, we had a Category 1 cyclone. This is Hurricane Lala, strike the big island and Maui pretty hard. Then we see that we've inflated since then, but now we're in this period of deflation. Just like we see with these other episodes, they deflated and then they rapidly surge upwards before then having their big eruptive episode. So we're right now in that waiting period, and it's possible that Kilauea erupts on maybe the 25th or the 26th. But if she waits just a little bit longer, then that will happen with this partial lunar eclipse. So that is very likely to occur. And again, this is one of the biggest volcanoes on Earth if we look at Hawaii as a whole. And it's also in a historic eruptive cycle right now, which is very, very interesting. But in addition to that, we have high magnitude earthquakes that have been synchronized with the lunar cycle as of late. Let's talk about it. Here we have our USGS significant earthquakes map for the past 30 days, and we have our highest magnitude events here. So we've had a lot of big earthquakes over the past month. A 7.7 that struck Indonesia on the 14th of August, a 7.4 that struck Colombia on the 10th of August. Notice how that's both 2 days on either side of the total solar eclipse on the 12th of August, which was that new moon. So those are pretty closely linked into that new moon phase, not exactly on it, but 2 days offset either side. Boom, boom. We see just shortly after the 7.7 Indonesia, also a 6.9 magnitude earthquake that struck Indonesia. And here we see our 6.8 earthquake which struck Japan. That was quite destructive, southern Japan. And they have that clocked in as a magnitude 7.1. The Japanese do with their seismic agency. That occurred on the 28th of July. Well, again, that full moon was on the 29th. So we see this phasing with the past lunar cycles of the full moon and the new moon, and now we're approaching that next full moon. Now, the interesting thing about Japan is that they've had a ton of earthquake activity since November of 2025. So for about the past 10 months or so, it's really been active, especially here in the north. Now, we just had a magnitude 6 earthquake strike here today, the 23rd of August, and actually less than 24 hours before that, a magnitude 5.9 struck outside Tokyo. So just in the past few hours, like the past day, there's been a notable seismic increase for Japan. That earthquake for Tokyo felt all over, this magnitude 6 being even stronger, but thankfully in a less populated area. But this earthquake occurring offset from these other locations where we've been having a lot of high magnitude 6 and magnitude 7 seismicity. So this could be a new area that may rupture soon with a larger earthquake. And that's a problem because it's closer to these main population centers here for the northern island of Japan. And well, if we look at these earthquakes, it's very interesting. They have, on average, about a 1 month periodicity. So we have our oldest ones here. We see November right there, the 9th of November. And then look here, we have December, and we get to the 8th of December. So about 1 month in between. Things did cool off in between December and March. We did have a magnitude 6.2 there in January, but that was further up north. So if we're talking about this cluster there, things cool off for about 3 to 4 months. But then we see there March 26th, we scroll down, we see April 20th, we see May 15th, June 24th, same day as the Venezuela earthquakes. We see also then in July, we have some activity that occurred early July, but really notably the 28th of July. And so you see that basically it's been about a month in between all of these. Now, that does not mean that the trend is going to continue, but it makes it more likely that we're probably going to be seeing more high magnitude activity about a month after that last big earthquake which struck the Kumamoto region. And again, the Japanese have that as a 7.1. So we have already seen the 5.9 that struck Tokyo and the magnitude 6 that struck up to the north today. That could be a foreshock though. And the full moon is coming. The partial lunar eclipse is coming. So I also really think that if you live in Japan, you should be prepared for a high magnitude event like you've been experiencing. And there doesn't really seem to be any sign that this is coming to a close now that we have this magnitude 6 to have just popped off there. So we have a synchronization with Kilauea, one of the world's biggest volcanoes, or at least Kilauea is part of the world's biggest volcano of Hawaii. We have tons of earthquake activity that's occurring about every single month for Japan. And we have this Mercury Cazimi occurring. With this partial lunar eclipse, we have the big sunspot, which could blast us with a big solar storm and solar flare. That will be Earth Center direct bullseye on the same day, August 27th to 28th. Everything is converging to that time. So I really want to stress, I'm not trying to freak anyone out with this video, but really I'm most interested in educating about the Earth and the sun and the space environment and more, right? Just I think what's happening around us every single day is incredible and we take it for granted. And also the fact that things are way more interconnected than we realize, or at least maybe than we've been taught. So there is a natural resonance that exists between all these different systems. Of course, the sun influences the earth. Of course, the moon influences the earth, and vice versa, and everything else in between. And so these sort of energetic convergences highlight this perfectly, because we do see these clustering of significant events in time occasionally every now and then, and this is one of them. So if you're in San Diego specifically, or you're willing to travel to San Diego, we will be having a lunar eclipse watch party in San Diego, free to everybody. So just go ahead and RSVP and sign up. There is a jot form linked in the video description for you to fill out if you want to RSVP. We'd love to see you there. It's from 4 to 10 p.m. For everyone else, just make sure you go outside once the sun has set. Just look to the east, find the moon, and go out shortly after sunset. If you go out at 5 a.m., you're probably not going to see it. Again, this is mostly for North America, South America. But you can look at that time and date web link to really get a sense of exactly when you'll see it for your location. I'll link that and all the other resources in the video description. But this is a long duration event. So again, that 50% partial to 50% partial phase lasts about 2 hours. So if you have some clouds initially when you go out, unless it's like super overcast, go out again and try to see it, because it really is quite incredible. And keep in mind as well that you're not likely to see it as obviously bright red and vibrant as you are with some of these graphics that I've been presenting, because you know, there's still going to be a sliver of full moon that's bright white, and that kind of washes everything out, but we are still going to see some nice color on the moon. It may look brownish to you, may look orangish, may look reddish. Some people may look even like a blood red, and sometimes also with these partial lunar eclipses, you even get gradations of like blue and purple in there. So it promises to be a spectacular event, no matter who you are and where you are, if you're in the areas that can see this. So thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I've been your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weatherman. If you'd like to stay up to date on what is happening with the Earth energetically, then please subscribe. I release videos almost daily, either videos or live streams. So if you want to stay up to date with earthquakes, volcanoes, severe weather, geomagnetic storms, space weather, solar activity, planetary alignments, interstellar and cosmic forces, we cover all of that. Hope to see you around. Wishing each and every single one of you well. I'm kind of waiting with bated breath as to what happens at the end of August. I think we have some big stuff coming up, but I think everything should be okay. It should be fine, we hope. So with that, I wish you all well. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.